Kwanza. In the presentations and submissions that have been made to us on the particular topic of audit of the 2022 presidential election, I heard you say that the position of Kenya Kwanza is that this matter is closed and done with, in the sense that it was concluded at the Supreme Court. However, there are people who've come before us, and in their presentation, they have said that is a political view in response to a political question raised by Azimio. Because our understanding, which I want to believe is the same matter that you're responding to, is that they are contesting the election result. However, many people, including the church, I don't know if you had the chance to listen to NCCK presented, so many people that have come before us, have told us, have a broader view of this issue. Look at it as an audit of our electoral process, which results are just part and parcel of. That there is a bigger perspective through which you can have a view to making our electoral processes better. What are the issues that have arisen, matters of contestation over every electoral cycle, and how that can better prepare us for the next electoral cycle. If that was made to be your understanding of what an audit will be, will you still maintain the same view that that matter is concluded, or you would agree with those that are requesting this committee to have a broader view of this matter? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Chair, before
you go, we still have comments. Chair, I think I want to go next. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Kenya Kwanza, for your presentations. My simple question is, what is your take on these errand elected officers or members of either county assembly or even the National Assembly who are errand, and they don't even conform with the party, maybe constitution or ideologies? What is your take on them? And secondly, Madam Senator, it's on the two-third gender rule. You gave us almost a blanket statement about the government or the parliament having not conformed to implementing. But I wanted you to be a bit specific. Do you have any specific measures and ways which we can use to get to this two-third gender rule? Like other parties have been coming here, the public service was here with their team. They gave us suggestions. Githu was here. He also mentioned even about scrubbing the women rep seat and maybe creating something else. Do you have anything specific that you can recommend to this committee? Thank you.
Mine, Chair, is just a comment.
Yes.
They might choose to answer it in a different way, but because also this committee is conscious that part of us are Kenya Kwanza and the other parties Azimio, I think the fact that we've participated in our full element, Opio and I, is testimony that what you call outbursts are just opinions, and that we continue to support this process fully, including its outcomes.
Thank you. Please respond, and we'll give you 3 minutes to just respond quickly to those issues.
Chair, we will try to respond in 3 minutes, questions that were asked in 9 minutes. Okay. we will abide, Chair. Chair, I will start on the issue of whether the issue of whether we agree that we should audit the process of the elections. Our position is that we can open up on the issue of auditing the process, and that is a mandate that is given to the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. And therefore, I think that goes without any opposition that as Kenya Kwanza, we agree. And since we are a democratic country, we can audit the process. We look into areas which we can improve as a country, because elections are supposed to be transparent and in a manner that people can be participating in the formulation of the rules of the election. Second, on the issue that you raised about strengthening of political parties, I want to strongly agree with the Secretary General of the Ford Kenya that let us strengthen political parties. Because we fought so much in this country, we shed blood to achieve the multi-party democracy. And therefore our position is that let us strengthen political parties. But the big question is, how do you strengthen your political party? You strengthen by recruiting members. So if in an instance you can recruit members from a particular political party to a point whereby that political party is no longer viable, you can decide to take up the entire membership of a political party and bring to your... So strengthening, you must strengthen your political party by recruiting members. And that is our position, that let us strengthen, let us compete, and that is multi-democracy that we fought for. On the issue of errant MPs going against their party positions, I think we already have a legislative framework on that. The Political Parties Act is very clear. It's just a matter of enactment. So, Honorable Wambilianga, enforcement.
It's already enacted.
Enforcement. So it's just a matter of enforcement. So that has already been provided for in the Political Parties Act and other related legislation.
Conclude, SG.
1 minute before he concludes, Chair.
Yes.
On the issue of political parties, we as a coalition are very much aware about where we came from in terms of the one-party state. Like we said correctly, we want to strengthen the political parties. And let me further indicate that we also, this is what I wanted to bring out, that also coalitions, we also need to strengthen development of coalitions that can actually purpose to drive a certain area. And that's the experience even we had in America. What you now call the strong parties America is a whole history of ideologies of small conglomerations that came together to form what they are today. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to know from you, this is a national dialogue initiative.
Yes.
And you are sitting on different divides. Why can't you mix? Thank you.
Food for thought. That's food for thought.
Thank you, Chair. I think we will be ungrateful if we left this sitting without congratulating the committee. You've made Kenya proud, because in the history of Kenya, this is the first time you are seeing different divides, political divides, sitting together, having a dialogue. And I think this is the Kenya we want to see. The other Kenya where we came from, we don't want to go back into those trenches. We want to see a Kenya which is united. I suggest, Honorable Chair, that in the forthcoming Mashujaa Day, you guys should be celebrated. We should give you accolades for bringing Kenya together. Now we have a peaceful country, and we want to encourage that we continue that. Thank you.
We appreciate. Thank you. Thank you, Kenya Kwanza. We appreciate you and your presentations. Asanteni. The next...
Federation of Kenya.
Federation, eh?
Federation of Kenya Employers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Federation, and then next after Federation of Kenya Employers is the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights.
Can they all be in the room? Federation of Kenya Employers.
Federation and Kenya Human Rights be here.
I can see Governor Waititu. Are you Governor Waititu? Are you part of KFKE? Which group are you with? Honorable Waititu? Or you ask personally? Can we hear you?
Let's first hear FKE.
Okay.
And then Governor Waititu, and then, yes. FKE, the floor is yours. We will not introduce ourselves. I think everyone now knows us. We think so. But you have exactly 15 minutes. Try and do the best you can in 15 minutes.
Thank you very much, Honorable Co-Chairs. It is indeed an honor and a privilege for the Federation of Kenya Employers
specific suggestions to lower the cost of living. Thank you. As you hear in your further written submissions, so that don't take any more time, but you made some very scary statement here that perhaps need to clarify, that Kenya has become the worst performing stock market in the world. You may need to elaborate on that within 1 minute. When did this happen? Yeah.
We have the article which we can forward to the Secretariat. It was in the international news, and we can forward it. We're just as shocked about it as you are, but that is the case. And I think what we must ask ourselves is, how did we get there, and what impact, therefore, does it have on the functioning of the economy? This is
does that point to a possible collapse of the economy?
The Bloomberg report.
Maybe we give you 5 minutes, Governor Waititu, because you're a respected member of society. We give you exactly 5 minutes, Governor Waititu, before the human rights takes over.
And proceed?
Proceed, the Governor Waititu.
I know all of you know me. I'm Waititu. And having been around for a long time, from a councillor to governor, there are some issues that I've observed that I wanted to make some recommendations. One of them is on education. On education in particular, I wanted to recommend on the issue of distribution of bursaries, which have been involved for a long time. I wanted to suggest and recommend that they be removed from the CDF of the Member of Parliament, because the manner in which bursaries are distributed is selective. The people who support the MP tend to benefit more than the people who do not support the Member of Parliament. If you look at the students, all the students nationally attend the same exam. They need to be given equal footing as far as preparations on exams is concerned. But if one student gets 1,000 shillings because of how the father voted, and another one gets 10,000 because of how the parent voted, that is unfair for that student who did not vote and is getting less money. If we want to equalize, the national government must take over the distribution of bursaries such that a student in Suba gets the same amount as a student in Githunguri and a student in Wajir, because they are facing the same exam, the same environment as students, but a student cannot be discriminated because of how the parent voted in their same constituency and how and where the student was born. And they are the same students.
Governor, you've taken 1 minute on that alone. So
yes.
Please take note, you have 4 more minutes in case you have more issues.
Yes.
And that you have prosecuted very well.
Yeah, I'm still continuing the same. If you consider an orphan in Rodwa, it is the same orphan in Kajiado. So both orphans should get the equal amount of funding from the government. So as far as I'm concerned, and I know that is a concern to so many other people, distribution of bursaries should be given to a national body, just like the way university is given to help, so that distribution of bursaries can be national. Let the Member of Parliament just oversee the distribution.
The point is made. Honorable Waititu, any other issue?
Any other issue? Yes, I have.
This is only one now. Yeah.
Yes. Having gone through the impeachment process as a governor, and also having been a member of parliament, when the Kenya Constitution 2010 was enacted in parliament, I know very well what the initial intention of the drafters of the constitution was when the impeachment was enacted in our constitution. First and foremost, it was meant to check the excesses of the governors in the counties. But the drafters of the constitution did not know or did not intend to hear or even to imagine that it was going to be used politically by some other leaders. But as it is now in our country, and as it happened to me, when I fall off, when I went into the bad books of the regime that was there, they drafted and planned and on how to get me out of office. And that will happen to so many other governors in future.
I think there's a proposal, Governor.
My proposal is...
No. I'm just suggesting to you, the
Yes.
Council of Governors was before us.
Yes.
And they addressed the same issue. What they are proposing
Yes.
is that we tighten the nuts on the impeachment process, but also make it 2 years, was it? What were they suggesting? We cushion the governors for 2 years, at least for them from the government to perform. What would you say?
My issue is different. What my suggestion was, because the drafters of the constitution, the initial idea of impeachment was not meant to be political. It was meant to check the excesses of the governors. My suggestion is, because impeachments will continue, I'm not opposed to impeachments, but since the governor will have fallen off with the regime or the support of the politicians, it should be only for that period that governor was elected. It should not be forever, because you are punished by one regime because you have fallen off with them, and they are, as it is now, as per chapter 6, you are supposed to suffer politically throughout your life. It is unfair.
It's for 10 years, Governor. It's not for...
No, even 10 years. Why should you suffer for 10 years while the regime that wanted you out of office is gone, and there is another regime now which is friendly to you? Why should you be affected because of that regime that has gone home? It should be made to be clear. The intentions of the drafters of the constitution was that impeachment is only to check the excesses of the governors, but not to make sure that you are always politically right with the leadership in the presidency level. Otherwise, so many other governors are going to suffer, and we must make sure that this committee takes care of all the loopholes that has been there in our constitution. Therefore, my recommendation, together with my other governor who was impeached like me, Sonko, is that this committee makes sure that the impeachment is only going to be for that period that you are elected, when you are not in good books with the leadership that is there in the government. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Governor Waitito. We appreciate, and I think as a governor, I want to say it's about time we really relooked at the impeachment process and made sure that it is safeguarded from political interference and misuse, so that we can protect people like you're saying. So I think that's something the committee is very alive to.
And Chair, if you have any document, I think we'll be happy to look at it on weaponization of the impeachment process. You raised a very, very salient point.
Exactly.
Thank you.
In fact, just to tell this committee, I had people have signed an impeachment. They are now looking for evidence to impeach. That tells you something. Yeah. It's really weaponization of impeachment.
I think we shall excuse now, Honorable Waititu, and let's hear the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. That's how it's pronounced.
That is exactly it.
Okay, thank you.
I was checking whether they were here.
Thank you, Governor Waitito. You made use of your 5 minutes.
Oh, Commissioner Bonaya.
Yes. Proceed. We agree there's no more introductions. We assume you have been in the room and you've known the panelists.
Thank you.
But you can introduce yourselves. Just do the introduction yourself for everybody who is here with you.
Thank you very much for that direction. Thank you, honorable members and chair. This is the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. My name is Roslyn Odede. I'm the chairperson of the commission. I'm with my vice chair, Dr. Raymond Nyeris, Honorable Sarah Bonai is a member of the commission, Director Ann, and the members of staff with us. So thank you very much for inviting us. The commission...
Just to let you know, you have 15 minutes, so just go straight to the issues.
Thank you for the direction. The commission provided its detailed report via email to your team, and we hope you have received it. If you haven't, we can send it back once again, but we did send our detailed our submissions to you. We will here just speak in summary to some of the key issues that are under discussion in this dialogue. So thank you very much. Now, we will go as per the issues that were sent to us. The first issue that was sent to us was the issues of electoral justice. And under electoral justice, the first issue that was brought up was restructuring and reconstitution of the IEBC. As a commission, we say this is a very crucial and imperative factor that should proceed with haste. The commission notes with concern the frequent amendments to the law on the composition of the selection panel at every turn. We as a commission think this does not augur well and contributes to feelings of suspicion and mistrust towards the electoral process. As a commission, we would suggest that composition of the election panel should be inclusive and diverse. It must be an inclusive and diverse panel at every instance. We suggest minimal or no participation by political parties. And we also suggest that it be entrenched in law that amendments to the composition of the panel do not take effect if the panel is to be reconstituted within 12 months of the amendment. This is to avoid interference or setting up on panels to play up to certain interests. And we think that should be a safety net there. When we talk of inclusivity, we would like to see PWDs in the panel. We'd like to see gender considerations taken into account. We'd like to see members of civil society included, academicians, professional societies, private sector, religious groups, and the youth, essentially making up the panels so that it is inclusive. When we talk of diversity, we talk of regions and we talk of ethnicity. Why do we talk of both region and ethnicity? Because when we talk of regions, sometimes I could be of a particular ethnic group, but descending from a region. And if we looked only at region and not ethnicity as well, you might end up with people from two people from the same ethnic group because they come from different regions. So diversity should consider both region and ethnicity. And in this, we also need to totally consider marginalized and minorities, the marginalized groups and minorities. Now, when it comes to boundary delimitations, the Constitution has very, very clear provisions on boundary delimitations, and it actually provides for 8 to 12 years for constituencies and periodically for the wards. And in constituency, they can only change the boundaries and the names. They cannot change the number of constituencies. We believe as a country, we have no reason to change the constitutional provisions in regard to boundary delimitation. The Constitution also provides the factors we need to take into account, including geographical features, community of interest, historical, economic, and cultural ties, population quotas, and communications. These are very, very key issues that must be taken into account. But as a commission, we would like to say this, that one, there's an urgent need to review the boundaries right now. One, because the limitation period is running out. Two, It will also address human rights concerns and cross-border disputes and conflicts that we are seeing around our constituency boundaries, especially conflicts over markets and resources. So we think there is need, and very, very urgent need, for review of boundaries so that these issues can come to the table, be discussed, and be cleared. We also consider that there is need, before the boundary delimitation takes place, for elaborate, effective public participation after sensitization, civic education, and very, very robust public awareness, because we must carry our people along. It must have a human rights-based approach. So we must go with the people, we must educate them, we must empower them, and ensure that the next boundary delimitation does not injure markets, resources, and does not lead to conflicts, as we have seen in the last 10 years. The other issue under that was the audit of the 2022 general elections. As a commission, we submit that the audit should be solely for the purpose of improving systems and not for reopening of the result that was declared. It should be for the purpose of improving systems and not for reopening of the result that was declared. Our election monitoring report captured several issues and areas that require improvement in our election processes, and these are the areas I think we need to be spending our energy on rather than trying to get back to the result that was declared and has taken effect. One is the need to invest heavily in technology, and technology that works for us. We must invest in technology that can enable us to vote from any location, technology that can identify cheating and malpractices, technology that allows us to count the vote as it happens, so that we are able to tell how many people have voted so far, what the vote is, so that the anxiety that goes with elections and election result announcement is dealt with through technology. Secondly, we need to take care of accessibility issues for PWDs. Our reports note with concern that these are issues that have not been taken care of in the past, and this is very, very concerning. Our reports captured instances where women on stretchers and women with the elderly women with the crutches had to access voting stations on second floors in buildings, especially primary schools with no lifts. So we need to urgently redress the issue of voting by people with disabilities and provide ramps for them where needed, and in other places also use technology to assist the deaf, the dumb, and the blind. The other thing is we need to improve the registration of voters, the system of registration of voters, to make it more effective and to also capture a lot more of the citizens. We find a lot of people left out by the vote. If you see the number of registered voters vis-a-vis our population census, clearly we have not done enough on registration of voters. We need to conduct public awareness on voter turnout. We saw that at least 30% or more of the population or the registered voters did not turn out to vote, and this is a great concern. Another area of concern is the litigation process, the court processes, the justice system. That also needs a lot of improvement. Some work needs to be done there. We have too many tribunals in the pre-election period, causing a lot of confusion, causing a lot of delay, and causing a lot of anxiety. We also have the Supreme Court challenges, the timelines, the technicalities, and the lack of access to evidence. These are issues that will need to be addressed if we are going forward. The audit should be able to come up with tangible issues, and then we address them. Shorten the time and anxiety in waiting for the election result. I think this is something that also needs to be thought of. The media needs to be managed better as well. We see that the allocation of time to candidates is not equitable, and this needs to be redressed. We need to ensure everybody is given equitable coverage during campaign periods. Everybody is also given fair news reporting. The need for fair news reporting is very, very key. Management of social media, hate speech, intimidation, and fake news, something also that we highlighted in our reports. The other thing is the tackling of election offenses and malpractices. I think this is where the rain beats us quite heavily. because a lot of candidates, a lot of their supporters, a lot of opponents engage in election offenses, which would actually lead to them being barred from contesting. But we don't see the whip being cracked. It is time to crack the whip with more authority in terms of election offenses and malpractices. This may bring some order into the room in terms of how we do things. And then better crowd handling skills for IEB staff. This was noted as a concern into how IEBC staff were handling people in some of the election stations. So that is it for the electoral justice issues. On outstanding constitutional matters on cost of living, a lot has been said. We've followed what has been going on here. We note Article 43 of the Constitution protects ECOSOC rights. This is economic and social and cultural rights. The Constitution also protects the dignity of the person and security of the person. High cost of living has negative impacts and human rights negative impacts on security of the person. It leads to a lot of insecurity and challenges around that. It affects the dignity of the person. If you can't afford your basic needs, your dignity is affected to a great extent. It affects the health of the people and the health of a nation at large, especially the mental health of our people. And we've seen a lot of psychosocial problems affecting our country now, not just the youth, but affecting everyone across the board. We've seen a lot of suicide, we've seen a lot of violence. All these are manifestations of mental health, depression, some that may be tied back to cost of living. Then it also affects nutrition, food, hunger issues, all that is tied in. As a commission, we ascribe to what has been said here before in terms of taxation, in terms of fiscal policy review and issues like that. But before any of that is done, as a commission, we call for effective public participation on any law or policy affecting the cost of living. We need to carry our citizens along on that. I think that is key. On the two-third gender principle, again, a lot has been said. It's a constitutional requirement that continues to be violated despite court rulings and the advisory by the Chief Justice in the past. The Commission has also in the past proposed amendments to that gender rule and provided us a solution to achieving that through nominations like happens in the county assemblies. Appointments continue to disregard the principle of the two-thirds gender rule. And the weak link in all this is the lack of a clear redress mechanism. There are no clear means of bringing into control an administration that does not make appointments that meet the two-thirds gender rule. Maybe we should amend the law to freeze funding to any entity that does not meet the two-thirds gender rule. That way we'll probably be cracking the whip. We need to hurt a little, and then maybe we will comply. But it is time you give the citizens of Kenya gender equality, gender parity. I think it is time. On issues of governance, promoting national unity, inclusivity in public appointments, Article 10 speaks to our national values, and these are the issues we are speaking to here. The president and elected leaders are supposed to be symbols of national unity. But we see that we have a lot of hate speech, a lot of negative comments coming from persons in leadership, divisiveness coming from persons in leadership. We have severally, as a commission, highlighted these instances and called on NCIC to act. And hopefully we, as a commission, believe this dialogue could lead to more tolerance and compassion for one another. We hope that we can all be peace ambassadors going forward. Let's emphasize empathy for one another. Now, on the third issue, which is fidelity to political parties, we say political parties are actually the fulcrum for democracy. It is through parties that citizens exercise their political will as they donate powers to their elected leaders. It is expected that political parties in their operations uphold good governance and democratic principles. The Commission, in its many reports, finds that most political parties have weak internal governance structures that make them susceptible to interference. The Commission says that there's no need for changing law. Parties just need to abide by Article 91 of the Constitution and abide by principles of good governance, promote democracy through regular, fair, and free party elections, respect and promote human rights, fundamental freedoms, gender equality and equity, respect rule of law, respect and adhere to the provisions of the political party's code of conduct, not be based on region or ethnicity, which probably is one of the factors that beat us a lot, discourage violence, intimidation of members, supporters, and opponents, desist from bribery and corruption, and should not use public resources to promote its interest. These are actually all the principles enunciated in Article 91 of the Constitution. If we abided by it as political parties, I think political parties would be stronger and would serve their members and supporters better. On the issue of CDF, National Government Affirmative Action Fund, and the Senate Oversight Fund, we want to reiterate here that the Supreme Court has already spoken to this issue. And the Supreme Court has stated the unconstitutionality of this issue. And I think we should not reopen that matter. We should allow national government, executive government, and the county executive to run with matters of development for the counties, for the wards, and for the constituencies. I think there are instances where it may be beneficial. I've had lots of students who say, yes, the money I got for school fees helped me, but it is mostly misused. As a commission, we have received several complaints around these funds, as the complaints range from sexual harassment to corruption to discrimination. So we believe the better oversight is to leave this to the national executive and the county executive and go by the Supreme Court ruling on the matter. On the issue of state officers, which wants to introduce 2 officers, we believe as a commission that probably the setting up of some of these offices may address the winner takes it all syndrome. That is the reason for the very highly contested elections that we see in this country, the reason why people do not want to go with the results, the reason why everybody puts everything into the race. I think this could be useful, but it needs to be properly entrenched in the Constitution. As a commission, we say that if this is the way the country will go, we must strictly follow the constitutional plan. Let's make sure we follow the provisions in the Constitution for amendment of the Constitution to entrench these officers and then make them valid. Let us not take shortcuts. Secondly, we must have effective public participation. And thirdly, we would say, let us not have a negative economic impact on the cost of living and the economy. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Want to keep it short?
Yeah.
Man, you've done it, and I can see there are 2 interventions, 1 minute each. Thank you, Senator Maria.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, Councillor Jar. Mine is just two short questions. You talked about minimal or no participation of political parties in the selection panel of the IBC, which means they play no role or minimal role in the selection panel. Is it informed by any best practices? Is it an opinion based on various studies? So if it is, can you then share them with us as the committee retreats for its own evaluation? And I'm persuaded by that 12 months window that once you change the composition of the panel, then it should not affect the selection for the next 12 months. I want to appreciate from you whether that should apply now based on the political crisis that we are supposed to be addressing, or should it come now in subsequent amendments? And the last question is, I think the idea about trying to constitutionalize all these other funds is largely because of the unconstitutionality of those funds. Once it is put in the Constitution, or is there a risk of having an unconstitutional constitutional amendment in the first instance? And this is a whole regime of study. I totally appreciate your views on the audit.
Thank you. But let me ask you, sorry, as we are consulting, just a quick one, as Honorable Mujin comes in, just follow up from where Omar has left. You know, elections are purely about politicians and politics, or largely, let me say so. And yet there's this school of thought, which you seem to subscribe to, that politicians should not play any role, or political parties should not play any role in the constitution of a body that manages elections. Early in the morning, some church groups were here. To be exact, the NCCK and the Catholics, bishops. And the NCCK suggested that they be allowed to constitute for us the body, the IBC. You see, this is a serious clash of opinion. And we really want you to help us because we perceive you to be fairly neutral and objective. Is it conceivable? Is it even really feasible that you can exclude politicians, political parties from an exercise that culminates in the constitution of a body that manages the elections? Yeah, thank you.
Mayor. Yeah, I think you mentioned something very important about some divisive, remarks, political statements that divide an already divided country, and you have made some, I think, reports to NCIC. But I might surprise you, and I tell you NCIC was here, and they didn't find anything divisive about certain statements. Some of those most famous is dividing this country into a country of shareholders and non-shareholders. Yani kuna wale wa Kenya ni shareholders wanajivunia kuwa wa Kenya, na kuna wale sio shareholders wanavumilia kuwa wa Kenya. But NCIC was here, they said, oh, that is not very divisive. And but there we are. On the reason why we are here, we had demonstrations. The high cost of living sent the Kenyans onto the streets. The issue of the opening of the servers, electoral justice, was one of the reasons Kenyans went to the streets. But our two principals sat and they said we need to sit and talk. That's why we're here. In the course of those demonstrations, there were serious human rights violations. I had expected that in your presentation, you would also address us on the issue of police brutality. There were 72 Kenyans who lost their lives through bullet wounds from police bullets. Many Kenyans were maimed, and some have not recovered as we speak. Would like to hear of that because of life becoming unbearable in Kenya and people carrying sufrias and going on the streets. As we speak, today we hear the UN Security Council has approved Kenya police going to Haiti. Would like you to also address us on that, whether they're well prepared in terms of training, going to a foreign terrain where they neither speak French nor Creole, and whether the abuse we saw here in Nairobi when we were demonstrating will be exported to Haiti, where demonstrations have been against a president whose legitimacy is being questioned. Would like to hear from you on that. Thank you.
Yeah, and just before you respond, you've mentioned that obviously there's need for us to handle IEBC as a matter of urgency. Based on the issues that you've raised, we are past the date for delimitation, and we have constituencies and wards that are currently not represented at all. Now, you've mentioned the need for inclusivity in the panel that will determine the IEBC commissioners. And you did mention a whole list of people who should be included. How many panelists, in your view, should be in that panel?
Please answer in under 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you very, very much for those interventions, comments, and questions. On the issue of political parties, Honorable Omar, we will be able to share further submissions on best practices that are out there. We undertake to do that within the next 2 working days. We shall share that. On the issue of whether the 12 months should apply now or later, We would, as a commission, say it should apply later. We should form one now because this is a crisis we are dealing with and we want to address it. There's a dialogue to make a way forward. So it shouldn't apply now, but going forward, I think that's how we should address and look at issues. On the issue of the CDF being constitutional and can we make it constitutional by amendment? Indeed, if we amended the Constitution and say this is grounded there, then it would be legal. But what we are saying as a Human Rights Commission is that this fund has been abused to the extent that it has led to violations of human rights. We are ready to share with you data on some of these reports that we have, and it will enable you consider whether this MP-centered office or a senator-centered office would be the right thing for us as a country going forward. We will share that data with you. Honorable Member of Parliament, you talk about elections being about politicians. I beg to differ. It's about us as Kenyans. It is about our development as a people. It is about societies. It's about democracy. It's about freedoms. It's about Kenyans exercising their rights. It's not just about politicians. This is a developmental issue, and we must phrase it as that. It is not just politicians on the table. We donate power to you. So it all starts with we, the people. So let's not forget that. Thank you very much. Sorry to come out strongly on that. On the issue of police violations, again, Honorable Wamalwa, we have a whole report on that. We will share it by email later today. We documented everything. We spoke to it. We had press conferences on the issue. There is no doubt that there was some sort of excess police brutality at that time. We brought it up, but we also brought out the issue of how citizens also harmed police in the course of all that. And all that is in our report. We will share it with you. On the issue of NCIC, I cannot speak for them, what they consider hate speech or not. But in our view, we have shared with them instances where we think they need to act, and we continue to monitor, and eventually our reports capture what has been taken up, what has not been taken up, and where we think the rain beats us and we need to change. On issue of Honorable Your Excellency, the Governor, issues of inclusivity, I think a good number is 9 to 12. That's what we provide for constitutional commissions or other bodies. So a good number, 9 to 12, 7 to 12, but 9 to 12 I think is a good number to have in there. So those are our submissions. We thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think that was a very good presentation from the Kenya National Human Rights Commission. Kindly make sure you give to us the other issues that you have committed to. They'll be useful in us making the decisions we'll have to make. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next is Azimio.
As Azimio comes in,
Azimio and Kenya.
We should recognize that Honorable Boniface Kinoti Gatogu was here with a memorandum. Since he was not listed to speak, he may not speak, but we acknowledge the receipt of his memorandum. I don't know if he's in the house. Mheshimiwa Boniface Kinoti Gatogu. Thank you. Your Excellency. Thank you.
Kindly settle down so that we can begin. Thank you very much. Who is leading the submissions? Is it you, Governor?
I am, Your Excellency.
Karibu. Please
Thank
start.
Thank you. We need a moment to settle down.
And as
to
you
get
do,
the
as you settle
technology
down,
connection.
And just to note, you have 20 minutes, like everyone else, so that you make sure you use your time well by sticking to the issues and avoiding too much explanation, so that you're able to meet all your.
Thank you.
As you do, Governor Ruto, I'm sure you don't need any introduction to anybody here, but you may have to do a quick introduction of your side. Yeah? It's okay?
Thank you, Chair.
The front, yeah.
Thank you, Co-Chair. We will introduce our members very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And allow me to ask my colleague, Dr. Karugo, to do so as we.
And because you're a huge group, we'll allow you, Governor, because you're a huge group, kindly just introduce the leadership at the front, and we'll be okay with that.
We are sufficiently guided, Your Excellency. Please proceed.
Thank you very much, co-chairs. In front of you is the team from Azimio. We have Barnabas in the far left, is part of the technical team. We have Wakili Ndegwa Njiro. I'm sure he's not a new face to all of you. We have Fred Abongo, also part of the technical team. We have Honorable Maison Le Chamon, also from Jubilee Party. We have then Kavina Lawyer Tim, who is from DAPK, and we have Mr. Manji from Jubilee Party. This is just part of the team. We have a larger part behind us. I think as the chair of Azimio Women's League, allow me to ask all the Azimio women to be upstanding. We presented in front of you a memorandum. We have a representation from about 10 of the coalition parties. The party league chairs are also present. So at some point in the presentation, we will also speak about the 2/3 gender role. I thank you very much.
Okay, you may proceed now, Governor.
Thank you very much indeed. We obviously have a presentation, a summarized presentation on PowerPoint, but the committee will already have received a detailed presentation of the issues from Azimio. I am Derito Mureithi. I'm chair of the Economic Council of the Azimio Coalition, Azimio La Umoja One Kenya Coalition. So we thank you very much indeed for the time, and we shall make haste. The issues to be addressed as the dialogue committee has agreed and directed, so I won't really delve into them. Cost of living then. And the first item to say about cost of living is that Article 43 of the Constitution places a duty on the state to deliver on the rights and the socio and economic rights under Article 43 to the highest attainable standards. You will find on close examination that the issues of cost of living are in fact contained within Article 43. So 3 broad points we'll address very quickly on the cost of living. And those 3 points are what drives cost of living. And those things are the management of exchange rate, the management of public finances, as well as the mix that is used to manage those instruments. On the question of exchange rate, I think what you will see on the slide before you is what has happened in the last 12 months. That the Kenya shilling has collapsed from 120 shillings to $1 to 150 shillings to 1 US dollar. The effect of it, of that 25% depreciation of the shilling, that is transmitted directly into the cost of living. So that everything that you are buying this year, this August or this October, is 25% more expensive than it was last year, simply because of the effect of the exchange rate. Of course, the committee will want to address itself, what drives exchange rate. You've had some of it already here from FKE. Portfolio flows, meaning the monies that foreigners come to invest in our stock exchange. And what has happened is that the foreigners have left. That's why the stock exchange is at its lowest point. And I'll show you a slide to that effect in just a moment. Now, we've said to the committee, management of public finances as a key driver of the cost of living questions. Why? Because taxation and borrowing have a direct bearing on what happens to the citizen, and we'll show you a couple of slides on that. Where we are, if you on the outlook, is that we expect. When I say we expect, these are the policies and instruments that have been placed already in Parliament. For example, the budget policy statement and the midterm expenditure framework. What does it call for? It calls for increased taxation. So next year, taxes are expected to go up 400 billion. It calls for continued borrowing, and I'll show you a slide in a moment, that the budget deficit is in the order of 760 billion, and that is expected. That is what is planned. Both things imply that it is not possible to bring the cost of living under control. Third point to make, experts agree we are in dire possibility, we are in debt distress, and the risk of debt default is looming, and all those things show that, in fact, we are on a terrible trajectory. Is it only against the dollar that the shilling is losing ground? That's a chart that shows you what has happened to the shilling in relation to the Tanzanian shilling. If you just go back to the slide, what you'll notice, we're moving from, again, a similar kind of depreciation of the Kenya shilling against Tanzania. So that the argument that this is a global problem is not exactly global for every, what individual countries are doing has a lot to explain the cost of living for their citizens. Now, management of public finances is, honorable members, fairly straightforward. You make spending plans. Those spending plans need to be financed. So either you are taxing to get money to finance your budget, or you're borrowing. Usually, you're doing both. What is the issue? Why is it difficult to bring the cost of living under control? Because the tools that are being used today are blunting economic activity. They are eroding confidence. Again, going back to why is the stock exchange performing so poorly? It is leading to the flight of capital from the securities exchange, and the mix of taxation and interest is not working. The big headline point there is the budget deficit of 768 billion this year, anticipated to be 760 billion next year. Where do you get that data? From the budget policy statement and the midterm expenditure framework. Those are the same numbers in a slide. What you will see there is continued increment of government spending. And if the committee permits, economists think about cost of living or inflation as too much money chasing too few goods. So if you want to bring inflation down, then you have to slow down on expenditure. You don't accelerate expenditure. Now, what the combination of policies is doing is to increase expenditure. Yeah? And you are increasing that expenditure by borrowing. So you are suffering a double whammy. Of course, you will ask us, how then can you reduce government expenditure? What can you do? Well, first of all, eliminate corruption and theft of public resources, eliminate waste, inefficiencies, and imprudent use of public resources. To give you an example, last financial year, last quarter of financial year, so June, May, April, or May, April, June of this past financial year, 193.4 billion went to domestic and international travel. Compare that, for example, to what is expected from the housing tax, which is 70 billion. Meaning, if we did not travel, we may not have needed to collect the housing tax. You could have financed it by just stopping excessive travel. When you look at social protection, which is being reduced, when you look at the resources to counties that are not growing, all of those things could have been resolved if we avoided excessive expenditure. The other thing that happens when you're borrowing, the other thing that happens when you're borrowing is that, of course, you have to pay. So debt service, what is the issue here? The issue is that debt service is now 67% of actual tax collection. Okay, and that slide shows you where is the source of this data. Again, budget review and budget outlook, budget review and economic outlook, as well as the financial statement for this financial year. The point being, can you really grow taxation by 530 billion, which is what is anticipated this year, and can you grow it at a time when the economic conditions are so poor? What is the effect of excessive borrowing? You squeeze out the private sector, and that is what that slide, again, from the quarterly economic review by Treasury, that is what it is showing you. That the spread, the difference between what depositors are being paid by banks and what government is paying those same banks to borrow that money, that's the spread, and what you see there, it is growing. The effect of it is to squeeze out the private sector. And I think FKE were before us, and they explained this point very strongly. This is what FKE was saying, that this, the Securities Exchange is now considered the worst performing. Not considered, that is what the data is showing, the drop being what is on the slide before you. Economic growth, because when you squeeze private sector to the corner, then there is no economic growth. And this is exactly what is happening. If you compare growth quarter to quarter, what you will find is that economic growth has flatlined. So with the exception of the COVID recovery in 2021, when you look at quarter two, basically it has flatlined. We dig deeper in two slides. What really, this inflation or this cost of living, what's inside it, what is driving it? That's the way it is. Food and fuel. So the policies we pursue must address food and fuel costs. But this is the outcome of what has happened in the last 12 months. And you can see, again, this is a data and graphic from the Kenya Bureau of Statistics. Everything, with the exception of one item there, has gone up with percentages of between 7 and 60-something%. Same there with non-food items like fuel. What you will notice, in fact, this is 1 month old now. This is before the dramatic increase in fuel price this September. So those numbers can only get worse. I know we are fond of blaming international crude prices. That is not fair to anybody because it's not true. That is, and this data again, published by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, that is the way crude prices are behaving. They are on average 34% lower than they were last year. So it cannot be that they are the reason fuel prices are going up. What is to be done? We must stimulate production by reducing interest rates. We must reduce taxation on energy, on fuel, on food. Taxation to SMEs is the only way you can stimulate production. We must have a balanced budget. Some have argued not possible. It is possible. In 2003, 2004, 2005, you had a balanced budget and you were able to implement the items of Article 43, like free primary education, zero-based budgeting, and so on. I have to move faster.